The alcoholism is mind, body, and spirit. And so, like, sometimes people think, I only have a problem with alcohol. I don't have a problem with anything else. Or I just have a problem with this and I don't have a problem with this. This is really what I thought when I first was open to something different in my life. I thought I had a problem with one thing. And what I learned about that is that's not true. I shared in my story about cigarettes. I shared about smoking marijuana. I shared about being a liar and manipulator. Maybe alcohol is not my problem. I know it is, but once I drink alcohol, I end up doing other things that are bad for me. So it's not a particular drug or alcohol. It's that what's wrong inside how we think and how we feel. That's the problem in the first place. And the only way that you're going to be able to get help is to be convinced of a condition that you have. Once that's established, then that's when the healing begins in somebody's life. Like, sometimes people share their stories and their experiences and try to compare that to their own. And what happens is it separates them from getting help. I don't want my story to separate you if you don't relate to it. Maybe some struggles that could be similar, that your life isn't doing good because of the things that you're doing. There is a better way to live if you want it. My name is Clare Brown. Well, addiction for me is many different things now that I've been sober for a while. So before that, I had an idea of what addiction I thought was. And because my idea didn't align with that, I felt like I didn't have an issue. So addiction has changed from prior to being in recovery into what it is now today. I would say what I've learned in recovery is that our biggest, greatest obsession, it says in the big book, is to be able to drink and use like a normal person. I definitely know that I do have a problem when I do use drugs or alcohol. It doesn't have to be my drug of choice. It's that I can't stop.
All right, Claire. So go ahead and get into your story and share it however you feel like you want to share it.
Okay. I've been sober 26 years. Nobody really in my family has probably gone to the extremes that I have with my addiction. I was an only child for so many years, and then I ended up getting two sisters that I helped raise. My dad died of the disease. I was a kid. I didn't get to know that side of the family. He was educated, family was well off. My dad could speak 5 languages. He graduated college. He was a banker. And so my grandparents raised me pretty much. All my memories that were good were with them. And so then I have my mom. My mom was a young mom. She struggled with her own addictions. She graduated from college, so she was educated as well. We came from like a family that people are either attorneys, lawyers, people worked in the government. I drank as a kid. I didn't know that I was drinking. My mom's boyfriend, his sister gave me a bottle of wine, which I didn't know what that was. It was a round bottle, and I got drunk, and I was probably like 6. So I didn't like seek it. It kind of found me. I could tell you that it didn't end there. I got a different stepfather. My stepfather got a job in Sacramento because we're originally from the Bay Area. My relationship with my grandparents changed because we moved to Sacramento. And I had a sister that I helped raise. I grew up really fast. I realized that I'm with these people that I should be close to, that I'm not close to. My mom and my stepdad, and the people that I was close to were gone. My dad is gone, which I don't have it closeness to that side of the family. And the two people that seem to be the most caring and loving people are now in the Bay Area. My life changed in a lot of ways. I didn't have that attachment closeness with the people that I should have attachments with. Didn't want to be home. And I'm a liar, a manipulator, to achieve the things that I want to do that I'm not supposed to do. I stole cigarettes. I smoked weed with the neighbors. I went to my first concert in junior high. There were some boys at this concert that passed the pipe. I smoked the pipe and got loaded. And that's how it always started for me, is that the wrong people at the right time showed up. And then from there, I moved on to high school, and every Friday and Saturday, I was drinking or using somewhere, at a party, at a club, a bar. And then it reverted into during the week. So I cut class and we would drink at someone's house, doing the bare minimum in school. By this time, I was like about 15. I would never really remember how I made it home. I wouldn't really remember what I did, but I couldn't wait to do that again. I think looking back is that my teenage years, it felt good. It felt good to drink. It felt good to use drugs because I didn't like the way I felt sober. Bottom line, I was getting ready to go to this club. My friend offered me methamphetamines. I did that. And what happened is I learned that I could drink a lot more alcohol. So I drank more alcohol. I was using more drugs that actually maintained my alcoholism. And I just started to progress from there. Got kicked out of my house when I was 16 years old. I lived with my best friend. And then life was a lot better because I felt like I had some peace, that I had some choices in my life to be kind of normal, but I wasn't. Like I said, my idea of somebody that was an alcoholic was somebody that was homeless. So I didn't see it as a problem. It wasn't something I had to have every single day. It was something I enjoyed doing because I didn't like the way I felt inside. So from that point on, I graduated high school and I remember going on my senior trip. And I was 17 and I went to Hawaii and I was drunk the whole time. I couldn't really remember too much. My type of thing is that I have to make sure I'm good and drunk before I get to this event. And by the time I'm already there, I'm already plastered and I'm drinking more and I don't remember how I made it home. I don't remember a lot of things, but I just know that I had a good time. I got to move back in with my grandparents and I'm only 17 years old and I've already did just about everything you could think of by then. My grandparents don't know who I am. I treated them really bad and didn't know it until I got, sober. I don't even know that I've changed or there's anything wrong with me. I was selfish and self-centered. Um, and all I was wondering why everybody was so concerned about what I was doing with my life. And at the time, I didn't think anything was wrong with my life. I felt like the people that I was hanging out with was doing the same exact things, but nobody in their life was as worried what they were doing. So I just felt like I was being picked on. I moved back to Sacramento and my addiction really took off. I went back to my parents' house and ended up getting kicked out of their house again. I didn't stay there very long. I moved into a party house and we were drinking every day. I got to smoke weed. I got to drink alcohol. I got to do lines of cocaine or whatever that was available. I had already been to every single bar in Sacramento. I wasn't even, 20 yet. um, there was always going to a bar, going to another house to stay up all night to do the same exact thing the next day. That was the goal. At the time, I went to school to take a couple classes so that I didn't look like I was doing that bad. My grandparents were kind of happy with me because I was in college, but I was still getting to live the life that I got to live with nobody worried about what I was doing. My disease started to progress. My best friend that I went to school with, his dad had a restaurant in West Sacramento named after him. And he asked me if I wanted a job. And I was like, sure. Okay. We used to hang out at his house after school. His dad had a keg and a yacht, and we used to drink his dad's beer, go to the bars, have parties on the boat, go to somebody's house. I mean, that was the regular routine. And what ended up happening is I got strung out. I was using and drinking every day and didn't know that I was fully addicted at that time. I hooked up with a guy that worked there. He sold drugs. What ended up happening is my friend's dad had let me go. I think he was thinking he was doing me a favor. So I hooked up with this guy. I became a drug dealer. I was committing crimes. I went into Sacramento, Yolo County jail on a regular basis. Once I was pregnant with this boyfriend that I had, I stopped doing everything completely. So I felt like I still wasn't having a problem, even though my life was in shambles. I quit using drugs. I quit drinking. As soon as I had my son, I started right up back where I left off. It was always the same thing. Every time that I was sober when I was incarcerated, I had time sober and I'd get out. And then a week later, I'd be in the same exact condition. I just couldn't figure out how to get out of this hole. I just thought, I remember I was thinking to myself one day, I had been up all night and I was smoking a cigarette, waiting for the sun to come up. And I just remember saying to myself, I'm never going to not live like this. I'm never going to not have to go to jail. I'm never going to not be able to drink and use normal, like a normal person, and not have all these consequences happening in my life. And I just thought there was no hope. I get to this place to where like my life's in shambles. Um, one more time, what ended up happening is I ended up going to prison. And that wasn't even a big deal because I was used to being incarcerated. I had made a decision in being incarcerated because I had more time to think this time that I might try something different. And maybe, just maybe, my life could be a little bit different. Maybe I could have my son, more in my life. Maybe I wouldn't have to come back here to where I normally end up. So I took a shot and I was honest for the first time in my life. I thought of this is that if I try this, I can always go back to what it used to be like. When I came home, my mom had picked me up and she said that we'll support you in your recovery if you stay clean. So she took me to my first meeting and it was like the first day of school. The first day of school when you don't know anybody. uh, that's exactly how showing up to a meeting was. I was uncomfortable in my head, but I knew that I was ready for something different. And I went to that meeting. I raised my hand. I said, I'm Claire, I'm an addict. And I was uncomfortable. And they said, keep coming back. And I was like, okay. And from that point on, I persevered, meaning I pushed through no matter what of the uncomfortability. I went to more meetings and God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. He put the right people at the right time that I met in the rooms of recovery. I went to AA, I went to NA. I found the people that I connected with there. I started getting a little bit more comfortable being in sobriety. And somebody took me through the steps of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it gave me a piece of my mind and here in my spirit, which is priceless, that I never had my whole life. I always shared that I had this piece, and I couldn't buy it. I couldn't get it anywhere. I couldn't even think that my life was going to be any different. And my life started getting better. People actually wanted to hire me for a job. I worked at a minimum wage job through this what's it, temp agency. And then God would open another door. Would you like a job here? I'd stay at that job for a really long time. And I had 2, 3 jobs for many years. My life became better once I learned how to tap into the resource, which is a higher power. The one beautiful thing that I love about the program is that you can have your own idea of something that's greater than you. And it could be God, it could be whatever you want it to be. I'm convinced of my condition. I know that I have a problem. I know that I have a part in everything in my life. Look at myself and my patterns and where my shortcomings were all my mistakes that I had made in my life, that I wasn't really a victim. I changed without my permission. I got a better quality of life. I work in the industry of helping people, which is a blessing. There's many the obstacles that I've overcome in recovery that I didn't take a drink or use drugs over. I've been through a divorce. I've had a lot of people die from the disease of alcoholism and addiction. I've had people steal money from me. I've had like really bad things happen that I thought I would never stay sober, and I have. Recovery's been probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me in life because I never even realized that it wasn't alcohol was the problem. It wasn't the drugs were the problem. Is I'm an addict, and once I start using or drinking, I can't stop, and that makes me different than other people. Like the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body, and I can't stop once I start. That makes me different than other people. That was a big relief. This light bulb came on. I had a sponsor that read the book to me to explain to me what was wrong with me. And I have alcoholism, which is mind, body, and spirit. It's a 3-part disease. And I was like, wow, I haven't got drink or took a drug in 26 years. I bought it home brand new by myself. I'm accountable. People trust me. My my family respects me. My son, I have a great relationship with him. He's 29 years old now. We have a really good relationship, which I never thought was going to happen because I was so worried about staying loaded, and that's all I cared about. I was really happy after getting comfortable in recovery. My life was getting better. This is what happens to us. So somebody hurt my feelings, right? We're kind of high maintenance people already. Okay. So, like, I was like, I can't believe somebody wants to hurt my feelings. And that would have been a really good reason to drink or use, right? Because when we get uncomfortable in our thinking and our feelings, we take a drink, we use drugs. And I just didn't want to do that. It was suggested to me. I think it's the back of the book of an AA. It's called the shovel prayer. It talks about praying for somebody for 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That's kind of like weird. I couldn't figure out how it's going to help me. Especially wishing something good for somebody that hurt my feelings. I wasn't willing to give up my sobriety. So I took the suggestion, of course, and thought, well, some of these other things worked out that was suggested, and my life has already improved dramatically. I did the little prayer. I think I had to do a little bit more than 2 weeks because it took a little bit longer than that. I started feeling a little bit more compassion and forgivingness to the other person. The whole thing is the steps change us inside here and in here. What I've learned in recovery and through the steps is to be loving, kind, caring, and forgiving towards all instead of holding on to resentment, anger, fear, and worry. I have a peace inside myself I never had my whole life. Like I couldn't buy that anywhere. I couldn't get that anywhere. And I got it for free in Alcoholics Anonymous through the steps. I was married in recovery. My husband had started drinking. What ended up happening is we had split up. He had connected with another woman and started a relationship. He said, well, when he comes back, that he wasn't going to participate in that relationship anymore because he wanted to be with me. He was dishonest. He stayed drinking. He stayed connected to her the whole year that we got back together. Fast forward, we split up and eventually we got a divorce. And I share how significant that is because I had to practice some of the things I shared about praying for other people. And that one situation took a while, but I ended up forgiving both of those people. And it's funny how God works when you ask that question, Kenny, because those two people asked me for help when it was time. My ex-husband came back and said, I really need help. I took him to our friend's house. He got sober. His life got better. And then she got into sobriety and asked me for help. And that's how things work. Some of the impossible things that became possible is that I learned how to forgive other people that hurt me. I learned how to be helpful, like the book says, that this is a sick person, and how can I be more helpful to him? Now I know it sounds pretty crazy, but I really feel better in here and in here. So that's a story for you. I used to think that recovery had to look one certain way. And I know today, being sober a long time, that a lot of people deal with sobriety in different ways and are successful, whether it's going to AA or NA or CA or doing trauma therapy or, getting really spiritual and doing meditation and other avenues of recovery. That it's whatever works for you so you have a quality of life. We all struggle from some type of trauma. One of my predecessors that passed away always would talk about little T, big T, little trauma, big trauma. Whether you didn't have one of your parents to raise you, maybe you were abused, maybe somebody abandoned you, you were sexually abused. That's one of the big issues of why people probably abuse drugs and alcohol, because it's a coping mechanism to deal with how they feel, and they might not even know it. So I really recommend looking at maybe working on some of the trauma. I feel like that's important.
What is sobriety?
Sobriety to me is loving, kind, and caring and forgiving and happy and true happiness and having a good life and being grateful for the things in your life. I feel like sobriety has really made me aware of being a good person. So I'm not a taker anymore. My first sponsor told me that, if God puts somebody in your path, you do your best to deal with that and help them the best way you can. living in the moment the best way I can instead of focusing on my past. Sobriety means focusing on my day-to-day living and having goals and trying to achieve goals, doing self-care things for myself, trying to have boundaries and just being a good human. That's really what sobriety is for me, like a better quality of life. So sobriety means a lot of things, but sobriety is a good life. Definitely. That's about it.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Should I move? Is it okay to move that? Okay. Cool.
Hi, I'm Kenny Hill with Recovery Hill. My intention here is to show the diversity of sobriety. How one finds themselves clawing from bottom is as nuanced as their journey to bottom. Their situation and recovery has the potential to be highly relatable to somebody who is watching. Therefore, I offer the interviewees to have total freedom to express whatever has worked for them, whatever has helped them sustain sobriety. That said, here at the end of the interview, I want to make a quick request so that it wasn't to take away from the interview itself. This request is that you like and share the video. You can subscribe if you want, that's up to you, but at least like and share it so that the content can get to as many people as possible. There is a great capacity and potential for the story you just watched to be able to help out somebody else to begin their story of recovery.